Hey, everybody, good evening and happy Valentine's Day. That means it's Wednesday night. It's February 14th. This is John DePietro along with Bob Zagami, and this is RVing in New England. We want to welcome you to our show. It's our fourth or fifth show. We're just getting a little more acclimated to what we need to do to make this exciting and fun for you every week. And you know what? There's so many things we got to talk about this week, Bob, but I think it would be remiss if we didn't. You know what? We're going to talk about fun things, but there's some crazy tragedies going on right now in Florida. And you know what? It's a shame that some families are going to be broken up forever and ever. And one of the things that RVing tells us is the value of families. And I'm sure that we want to remember those families in Florida that are going through some crazy, crazy turbulent times right now as we speak.
Terrible tragedy, and especially on Valentine's Day when it should be fun for the family and loving with the family and loving your wife and your kids and your husbands and your grandparents. It's been terrible to watch it unfold today, but we wanted to express that and make aware. I'm sure everybody's aware of it by now.
We've brought up the term Valentine's Day many, many times. Why don't you tell us about that contest that we've been promoting and how it's going?
Yeah, we had a lot of activity this week and last week on the Share Your NERVDA Love contest on the Facebook page, where we're asking all of our fans to let us know who their favorite RV dealer is. And when we get the tallies at the end of the month, the dealer with the most votes will get a pizza party for his employees. And the winner will be selected from that dealership, or those dealership entries, and will also be invited to join us at the pizza lunch if we can do it. So we've had a lot of heavy activity. We've done as many videos as we can this week from the dealers, kind of combining the February contest and the Springfield show to let you know who's going to be out there. And
the funny thing is,
the fans have jumped on, and you can tell when we've been there.
The dealers are interested. I mean, you know what? You tell them all about tell us what the favorite dealership is, and they nod their head like that. Then when you say there could be a pizza party, wow, we're going to start promoting that on our website. So we've got to really be able to figure out, you know, how to make this happen. I mean, we know it'll make it happen, even if we have to bring some frozen pizzas up and pop them in a microwave oven, which won't be the case. We'll find a great local pizza shop wherever the dealer is.
Good point, though. We didn't tell them where the pizza was going to come from. You know,
yeah, right.
Run down the supermarket and buy some DiGiorno's and tell them
or those Celeste pizzas, 10 for $1. You pop them.
Fire up all the ovens in the motorhomes. Nobody uses them anyways, and then we cook the pizza in them. You
know, the funny thing is, pizza is probably the least consumed product around the campfire in the RVing world because it's hard to make. Although there are some recipes now that show you how to make pizza on a open fire grill. Yep. So whatever. But you know, we'd mentioned that we were going around to the dealers that are going to be exhibiting in the Springfield show. Why don't you tell us when the Springfield show is, and then we'll get into some of the exciting things that we've seen with some of the dealers so far.
Yeah, it's this weekend at the Big E out in West Springfield. Opens up Friday afternoon. It's open Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. They're using 3 buildings: the Better Living Center, the Young Building, and the Mallory Building. And for those of you who go, make sure you visit all 3 buildings. I know they're farther apart, but this year I think we're lucky. The weather forecast looks pretty good.
Right. Yeah, we've gone out there some years where it was freezing, frigid, windy, cold weather going from booth to booth. You know, going from building to building. And I know somebody said in the last 2 years, one of the days have always been snowed out, but we've got a great weekend forecast.
Yeah, we have, one of the things that going between those buildings, if it's rainy, sleety, and icy, it really dampens the traffic in the second and third buildings. Everybody seems to want to stay in the first one. But certainly visit all 3 of the buildings and visit all of the dealers that we've got there. I can pull them out. We got several NERVDA dealers that are there. We did several videos on them this week. Good selection of products. You'll see everything from motorhomes. Much more trailers. This is a trailer show. A lot of entry-level trailers, pop-ups, teardrops, truck camp. This one actually has several truck campers, full travel trailers, and full fifth wheels. So it's a good show. It's a good way to spend a day for the weekend, and check it out.
Yeah, it's a huge show. Like you said, it's 3 buildings. And not only are there a lot of RVs on display, but there's campgrounds and a lot of other ancillary products that go hand in hand with RVing. So, it's at the Big E. Everybody knows where it is. It's easy to get to from wherever you're coming in New England. And from Hartford, it's straight up 91. From the northern part of the state, straight down 91. From the Pittsfield area, go east on the Mass Pike to exit 4 or 6. And from Central Mass and points in Maine and New Hampshire, just take the Mass Pike out to exit 6 or exit 4, and it'll take you right there. We were going around and talking to a lot of the dealers, and the excitement of the dealers is really interesting because we did the same thing in January prior to the Boston show. But this time we got to stand outside with the dealers, and there was some sunshine. And I think right around now, people are really getting cabin fever. They want to get out, and they know that really we're only 6 weeks away from the unofficial start of the RVing season. Did you see that, Bob, in the dealership you went to?
Yeah, and the weather is going to get better the next few days. So, yeah, we're very optimistic on that. And it is nice to be outside again and show them in the outside thing rather than sitting inside in the office. Something else, speaking about showing something else, I'm not sure how many people caught it today, but I was down at New England RV Roof.com in Plainville, Mass. They're a new associate member. We saw them at the Boston show and the Connecticut show, and they will, in fact, be exhibiting out in Springfield this weekend, and they do a complete roof makeover. They strip it down. They have liquid epoxy and liquid vinyl that goes on there. It's a very interesting process that they do, so they wanted to hook up with NERVDA and make sure the dealers knew that such a service was available, but also from the consumers themselves. They sell directly to the consumers in most time. And if there's a damaged roof, they'll talk and work through your insurance company. But we're glad to have them on board. And what we're going to try to do between now and the end of June is try to feature all of our associate members along with the dealers. We haven't done that in the past, and it's something new for us to add to it. But if you haven't checked it out, just scroll down below later on and see the video. See the video that I did with Jim and Kurt down at New England RV Roof.
Right. And while you were mentioning that, Jerry Plant went on and said, will there be national manufacturers in Springfield? Well, there will be reps from the national manufacturers. When we talked with Chad from Pete's RV, he said there'll be some Airstream people there, lots of Forest River people there. I know the Winnebago reps are always there. So, yes, there will be national people from Elkhart and other points where RVs are made to answer specific questions that consumers may have. Good question to ask, Jerry.
Yeah, it's a very good question because the manufacturers' reps live for these shows. They want to come out and they want to support the dealers. They will bring with them special pricing for the shows, and you get to talk directly to the person from the factory because lots of times the dealers are busy and they may not know the production schedule. They may not know if there is a new color scheme coming or if they have new fabrics coming or when the model year switches over in the middle of the year. So it's kind of nice to have the factory rep there and be able to talk to him. And it's nice for them to see the quality of the audience that we have here in New England. So, yeah, I think in most cases, in every case, I would bet there's a manufacturer's rep in somebody's booth.
Yeah, and I would say that also that one of the questions that the manufacturer's rep will probably answer better than the local dealers is the availability of a certain product, because so many new products were talked about in September when we went out to Elkhart. And for example, that I would say it wrong, Revell or Revel, the four-wheel drive Winnebago product, has an unbelievable demand for it, but the product is not readily available yet. So I'm sure Dwayne or any of the other Winnebago people that'll be out there, if you ask them directly, they'll be able to tell you, hey, you know what? You better order it right now because there's a X amount month backlog. Because if you want to have it this season, you better get your orders in quickly. And I know we told people that about the Boston show, but it's even more important now because, I mean, I was at a dealership. I was at Camping World today doing an interview there, and it was like a Sunday of an open house. There were so many people on the lot that were looking at products. And here it is at 3 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon.
Well, it's a very valid point, and I've seen it when I've been with the dealers also. the lot traffic this year is way up, and the attendance at the shows is way up. I know we broke attendance records in Boston and Connecticut. I expect that they'll probably do the same in Springfield, especially with the good weather. But it's also driving a lot of people to the lots during the week, because I think they've got the message that if you're going to buy, this is your year to buy, and you see it on a dealer's lot. It's got everything that you want in terms of the size of the product and the number of beds, and you like the interior and you like the exterior graphics, you probably better put an order down on it. We don't say that to push the sales of these. We want you to make sure you take your time, understand the industry, understand the dealers, make sure you're comfortable with the dealers and with the products. But if you're an experienced RVer trading in, you know when you see the product and what you're going to like. So grab it. And if you're a newbie, then don't be afraid to pull the trigger a little bit quicker than what you thought you may be doing this year.
Yesterday afternoon, about 5 o'clock, I was over at Flag right here in West Boylston. And there were people coming in at 5 o'clock at night saying, hey, I was driving by. I saw that pop up down the end. Tell me what the price is on it, because I'm looking for one. And, that was one. And then another person saw one of the Class A units that were out front, because they were coming out of Walmart right nearby and saw it. And they're coming in. They're, what we say, demand is up there, but it's up. And when you're in the dealership and you see the actual people coming in and asking questions, you know that it's more than just talk.
Yep. And same thing happened at Fuller. I was over with Sherry doing her video, and she closes at 6, and we were kind of wrapping it up and just talking, and all of a sudden 2 different couples came in and wanted to talk. So I suspect she probably didn't get out of there till 7 o'clock and maybe later on there.
Well, you bring up a good point. One of the things that I've noticed with our dealers, and Sherry Fuller is a classic example, they tell you they don't, if it's closing time, well, there's no such thing as closing time when you're working 24/7, especially at the start of the season. She takes an enormous amount of time to talk about what the specific needs are of that particular renter. And, she's not going to give them something they're not going to need, because they're not going to like their experience. And I've noticed that with so many dealers are taking more time to ask questions rather than just sell something to you. They're asking more questions so they can sell you the proper item. And I think that's very, very vital.
Yep, that's a good point. And speaking about shows, let's do a little recap on the Boston Globe travel show that John and I did last week. I did Friday and Saturday. John filled in for me on Sunday. Very interesting show, about 24,000 people looking for vacation alternatives.
Yep.
We had a display for NERVDA, kind of focusing on renting an RV for your next vacation. That was one of our signs that caught their attention. The other was discover RVs and the RV lifestyle. It was very interesting to talk to the people. It was a constant flow of people that came by, and we had never exhibited there before. So we were kind of like the newbies, and people weren't necessarily expecting to see an RV association there. But we got to spend a lot of quality time with people to explain RVs and the fact that you can rent them, the different types that you can rent them. We represented all of our dealers who rent RVs, and including Campanda, which is a peer-to-peer RV rental company, Fuller's, McDonald's. Well, McDonald's is not renting anymore. They told us that just as we started the show. So they won't be renting the Cruise America again, but Forest Marine is doing Cruise America rentals. We had Russo's, Mann's, Meckelson's up in Vermont, Longview RV. So there was a lot to talk about to people. They'd be interested in those that are local and close to them. But you had a good crowd on Sunday also.
We had a great crowd on Sunday. One of the interesting things that I kind of find out when I ask these people, I'd say to them, where are you from? The number of people from Newton, Massachusetts, I mean, if I was to tabulate the towns, Newton in the Back Bay. Now, Newton is a town that's highly populated. It's it's contiguous to Boston. You drive right through it on the Mass Pike where the Star Market is. But they don't have big yards there for people to put motorhomes in. So these people said, look, I can't keep one in my yard, but I'd love to see what it's like. And so many people also, Bob, tell me if it happened with you as well, came up and say, this is something we've always talked about, but never carried out any further because we didn't know where to go. Well, we took that excuse away from them.
It's a good point. I had similar experiences, but more so from the Somerville and the Medford and the Alston, and the Brookline, because the travel show is basically it's Boston Globe, and there is a lot of people, probably most of them within 128. Tremendous number of young adults, single women, students that were looking and really got excited when they realized that they could rent a Class B motorhome and get out there for a month, or take their family, a young professional that might have a couple of kids at home that could rent a Class C motorhome and go off to Maine or New Hampshire for a week during the summer for their vacation rather than going into hotels. So yeah, from that standpoint, I think we resonated really well with the crowds that were there, because it wasn't the typical crowds that you would get at an RV show. None of these people came to the Boston Globe Travel Show looking for an RV.
No, so but they were happy to see that we were giving them an opportunity. The other thing that I noticed is most of the people, they didn't know the difference between a Type A, a Type B, and a Type C. So we had the big, the show and tell board there. Most of the people seemed to be interested in B's and C's, but very few people, they seem to be intimidated by trying to drive a Class A. And I'll tell you, the first time, maybe a Class A is not your best bet to try it out with, but start with the C.
We had that chart up, and we had a chart that showed all the different types of RVs that various companies could rent. And I would say that 90% of the people that I spoke with would take one look at the chart and they'd look at the Class B and say, wow, that I could drive that. And this goes right in line with the industry statistics right now. We just got them for last year. We're up 27% on Class B motorhomes. Last year was 26. The year before was 25. The year before was 24. This is a segment of the industry that only used to grow 3 to 4% a year for 30 years, and now it's exploding. And people look at that. So this is the younger generations. This is young couples. They look at that, and it doesn't faze them at all. They know they can drive a Class B. Now we know they can drive a Class C and a Class A. But they know they can drive a Class B motorhome, and they were ecstatic to see that they could actually rent them.
Yep. One of Jerry. That's why Cruise America is exclusively Class C's. I wasn't aware of that. I've seen some. El Monte does a lot of Class A's, but you know what? They also want to have the motorhome brought back in one piece. So that's pretty important there as well. The other thing that we saw at the show is a lot of attractions that RVers might be interested in going to. And I know Bob and I had both talked about that ferry to from Portsmouth, Maine, from Portland, Maine to Yarmouth, Nova Scotia. And we're talking with them. We may be able to have a contest for our NERVDA people here. But that saves about 500 miles of driving. To go all the way up northern Maine and then into New Brunswick and then down to Nova Scotia. And, this is their third year with this ship. And it's pretty cool. It's a catamaran. And when you get on it, you don't even know you're on a boat. It's so darn big. So we're trying to talk with them. And then there was Edaville Railroad and, several other New Hampshire attractions that RVers might be interested in. As I mentioned, we're going to try to put arrangements together where people that watch the show and go to the RVing in New England Facebook page will have the capability to win some trips to these places.
Yeah, we think there's several partnerships that could be developed down the road for that. There was a camp in New Hampshire called Camp Cody that had a very big display. They were there to provide entertainment for kids and everything. And I said, well, do you ever have people that drop their kid off at camp for a week, but then go camping in local campgrounds? And
without the kid?
They didn't know what I was talking about. I mean, they were camp for kids. They didn't talk about. But think about that. If you're going to send your kid to camp for the summer, and whether it's in Vermont or New Hampshire or Maine or down the Cape, I'm sure there's camp for kids down the Cape, and a lot of kids go to camp. Well, hook up your trailer or your motorhome, drop the kid at camp, spend the whole week down the street at a campground someplace, pick them up, and go home on Saturday.
Yep. Interesting. Hey, and speaking of campgrounds, the largest campground in America this weekend. Bob, where do you think the largest campground in America is this weekend?
I'm going to guess Daytona, Florida.
Why do you say that?
Well, there's this thing called the Great American Race.
Yeah, you want to be a little bit more specific?
They run around a track, NASCAR, Daytona 500.
About 200 times.
Millions of people, 20,000 RVs, probably minimum 20,000 RVs coming from all around the country to kick off the NASCAR Monster Cup Series. Actually, all three series, though. They actually did a Rolex for 24-hour Rolex last weekend.
So there's two races tonight. No, Thursday night.
There was the qualifying races are tomorrow night. Yeah. They had the Clash, which used to be the old Bud
Clash.
What they call it, Bud All-Star. That was Saturday night. And Kozlowski won that after a couple of guys crashed right near the end there, Jimmy Johnson and Carl Larson. So the Daytona 500 is Sunday, and it's a big race, but depending on the race around the country, and even though they're losing a lot of attendance right now, it used to be that at any NASCAR track, there would be a race weekend. There would be 10,000 RVs, that would be everything from a pop-up to a $2.5 million Prevost bus. I remember going and doing some coverage of the Las Vegas race several years ago, and they have a raised area on the back side of the track that they rent out for something like $4,000 or $5,000 for the weekend. That's just to be able to park your bus up there.
Then you got to buy tickets,
And then you got to buy the tickets, and they're all Prevost buses. There isn't anything up there less than $1 million. They got the best seat on the back of the track.
It's funny you bring that up because a few years ago I went down to Charlotte for the Coke 600, which takes place over Memorial Day weekend, and they took down some stands down between the first and second turn, and now they allow you to pull the buses up there. So they charge the buses to go out there, and you got your own picnic area and whatever. It's like a VIP area. But the interesting part about
Jerry's on top of the ball there. You're right, Jeffrey Earnhardt. I didn't put that note up. I keep forgetting to do that. Let me do that and do that and do that. As Jerry says, Dale Earnhardt's grandson is racing. He's right. Jeffrey Earnhardt is racing. That's his the grandsons are Ty Dillon and Austin Dillon. But then Jeffrey Earnhardt is racing. I wonder who that couldn't be one of their sons. Maybe it's a younger brother to Dale Jr., but he's racing. And then on the pole is Alec Bowman, who is now driving for Dale Earnhardt Jr. So Jr. will be up in the booth after he's the Grand Marshal. He's actually doing the Grand Marshal thing. Then he'll run up and join the track coverage.
He'll be out of breath for a while.
Yeah, he'll be in the booth.
The first 20 minutes if he runs up those stands.
Yeah, so he owns that end of it. So good point there, Jerry. Yeah.
One of the things that we're going to try to do this year, folks. So, by the way, if we've got several people watching right now, if you have a question on anything specific, there's a spot right on your monitor to just type in your question, and we'll do our best to answer it. And if we don't know the answer, we'll just make one up. But effectively, what we're going to be doing is going to some NASCAR tracks this year and doing some videos of the people in the tracks. Bob had mentioned from pop-ups to Prevost. The biggest kick that I got out of when I went to Talladega a few years ago, actually in Charlotte as well, is the converted school buses. Down south, they last a lot longer than they do up north because they don't have the salt to rot them out. So they take those old school buses and they paint them up. And I don't think they spray paint them, and they don't bring them to Earl Scheib. They just pick out an old paintbrush and find out whatever any paint might be left around the garage. And they paint these things up. They rip all the seats out and they throw mattresses in. And we got a tour of them. In fact, it's on Facebook somewhere. It's on YouTube somewhere. If you type in John DePietro and Talladega, you'll probably be able to find that. But there's some characters that come to these races. And you know what?
Jerry just bailed me out. He said,
nephew.
Dale Jr.'s nephew.
Nephew.
So that's got to be his sister's son. I'm trying to think, is it Kerry or Kelly?
Yeah, I think it's Kerry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Jerry. Okay, another thing we did touch on it last week is making campground reservations early.
Yep.
That's going to be a big thing this year. We've already seen a lot of criticism, quite honestly, on it in the sense that they can't get the reservations that they want for the weekends, especially on your holiday weekend. So you really want to get those reservations early and look at some of the rallies that are out there. We got Good Sam rallies coming up in May and June. Talk a little bit about that, John, and I'll see if I can.
Memorial Day weekend is the Good Sam Massachusetts group that comes in out in Greenfield. It's always a nice event. And if you go on Facebook and just type in Mass Good Sam, then you'll get right to Joe and Rhonda Cavosa. And you don't have to be a Good Sam member to go to it. All of the camping clubs, if you will, like FMCA and Good Sam, are realizing that a lot of people today are not really into big group stuff and don't want to join and have to go, feel obligated to go every weekend with the same people. So they're making rules this year, not rules, or they're taking rules away that you don't have to be a Good Sam member. You can still show up to it. And in mid-June, there is the Rhode Island group. And then each New England state, I know Maine is like the weekend after Labor Day. But
the kickoff is May 25th to 28th, which is the Mass Good Sam, and that's out at the Franklin County Fairgrounds in Greenfield. Yep. And then, in each subsequent, couple of weekends, it goes to Rhode Island, New York, Atlantic Canada, Vermont Good Sam, New Hampshire, Ontario, Maine Good Sam, Quebec, and they finish up with September 14th to 16th after Labor Day, the 5th annual Southern New England Family Fest at Normandy Farms Resort. I'm sorry, Marcia. And we will probably have another display at that particular event with our dealers. Don't know if we'll have it on the first one, but a lot of our dealers participate in the Normandy Farms event for the combined group. They have roughly about 150 rigs from their chapters, and then there's another 250 people in the campground that have access to come out and look at the motorhomes and the trailers that they bring down there. So that'll be on the docket for that also when we do that.
Free ice cream is one of the highlights of that event.
What's that?
The free ice cream.
Right. And I don't know if we mentioned it last week, but FMCA, the Family Motor Coach Association, has changed their rules finally, and they're now allowing towables. So people with trailers and fifth wheels who were not allowed to join prior to a couple of months ago. The association only dealt with motorhome owners and bus conversion owners, but now trailers and fifth wheels are welcome into the Family Motor Coach Association. And they've got a real big national rally coming up in, I think it's the third week in March in Perry, Georgia.
Back in Georgia this year. The thing with FMCA, they looked at the numbers and realized that 80% of the 80% of the RVs that are sold every year are towables. They're not motorized. And I think when you put those figures together, you realize that, look, if you want a future, you've got to go with where the audience is and where the people are that are RVing, how they're RVing, and they're RVing in travel trailers. Number one, they're easier to, they're generally more inexpensive or less expensive. More inexpensive, that's an oxymoron. They're less expensive to own.
More expensive, okay.
Yeah, more less expensive. But also, people, so many people today have SUVs, more so than cars, and they can tow them that way easily. And a lot of people like to take them to events and, or to campgrounds and drop them there for the whole summer. So that's another reason that they do that. So we should tell them again about the Springfield show, the details as we get set to wrap up.
Yep. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, President's Day at the Big E out in West Springfield. So it's central to pretty much all of New England. We've got dealers in the show from Vermont. We got Pete's and Vermont Country Campers will be there. Coming up from Connecticut, you got Hemlock Hill. You've got Lee's Auto and RV Ranch.
Probably.
You've got Longview RV. You have another one. Crowley is going to be there. Yep.
I'm going to be there.
You got from New Hampshire. You got Cold Springs RV coming down from New Hampshire. You got Flag RV with their 2 locations in Massachusetts. So you've got, and there are some dealers there who are not members of NERVDA. And if you happen to go to the show and you see those people, tell them that they should join NERVDA and join in with all the fun that we have here on Facebook, but all of our shows and our events and some of the consumer things that we hopefully will be launching here in the next month or 2 for our consumer fans. Jerry mentioned FMCA in March. Jerry says more or less. I'm not sure I understand your comment on more or less, Jerry. And he says, Kerry Erdenhardt. Yeah, thank you. That was his.
Tell Jerry I apologize. I was down at his store last week, and we did a great interview with Jill. And but we were kind of tight on time that day, so I didn't get a chance to talk with him on, I think it was Saturday morning.
I think you did that one Saturday morning. Yeah. How'd you manage to get Jill and not Jeff?
Well, Jeff was off that day, and let me tell you one thing. Jill had no hesitation at all about grabbing that microphone. In fact, I think she even rehearsed. In fact, if you look at that video, as soon as I said we're on, she just took over. She goes, "Hi, it's Jill at Major's RV and Bourne."
Oh, she did. She was very comfortable without him. Yeah.
She was more comfortable without Jeff.
yeah.
So Jerry, especially on Valentine's Day, we don't want to get any family squabbles.
When you win tomorrow, Jeff, Jerry, tell Jeff that we were talking about him, and we thought that Jill did a great job. So from now on, when we go down to Majors, we're going to start with Jill, and if Jill's not available, then we'll take Jeff.
Yeah, forget David. As long as David pays the dues, we're all set. David's he's on the third string now.
He's always one of the first guys. The president.
Very smart. No comment.
Right. Yeah.
It's good to keep the job that way.
He's politically correct. All right, we're going to wrap it up. We're running about a minute over. Thanks very much for joining tonight, especially on Valentine's Day. I'm sure we'll have a lot more that'll view it at their leisure tonight or tomorrow and over the weekend. So spread the word. Thanks for coming, and come back again next Wednesday at 7 o'clock.
Have a great day, everybody. Let's go RVing.
Thanks, John.